chapter 7 is all about similar polygons. So it starts out with a ratio is a comparison of two quantities. There's two ways to write a ratio. You can write it as a fraction, or you can write it with a colon. But just like a fraction, you always want to make sure that you reduce. So this is already reduced, this is already reduced. But if you had something like 2/6, 2 to 6, you would reduce it as 1 to 3. A proportion is a statement that two ratios are equal. So for example, 1/4 is equal to 2/8. The cross product property is if you have A over B equals C over D, the cross products are equal. So a cross product means multiply. So if you multiply A times D, it equals C times B. So example number 1. So we're going to use those for these next examples. A scale model of a car is 4 inches long. The actual car is 15 feet long. What is the ratio? So ratio, we can either write it as a fraction or with colons. What is the ratio of the length of the model to the length of the car? So in a ratio, they're telling us the order that we need to write it in. Because length of the model came first, we're going to write the length of the model first. So it's 4 inches, colon, to length of the car. So length of the car is 15 feet. 15 feet. In order to write the ratio properly, you need to make sure they're both in the same units. 4 inches and 15 feet are totally different units. So we need to make sure they're both in the same units. So I'm going to convert 15 feet to inches. Because there is 1 foot in 12 inches, I'm going to multiply 15 times 12. So it's going to be 4 inches to 180 inches. So I have these inches are both the same. I don't need that unit anymore. So the ratio is 4 to 180. But remember, we want to reduce everything. So I'm going to divide 180 by 4 and it's 45. So the ratio is 1 to 45. So make sure you reduce at the end. Two cities are 3.5 inches apart on a map with a scale of 50 miles. Find the actual distance between the two cities. There's a couple ways to set this up. I'm going to set it up by using a proportion. So we're trying to find the distance, the actual distance. We know that it's 3.5 inches apart, but we don't know the exact miles. So let that be x. This is equal to, now I want to make another fraction. I need to be careful with my units. If I put inches on the top right here, I need to put inches on the top over here. So I'm going to write 1 inch is 50 miles. See how my units line up? Inches, inches, miles, miles. So I'm going to use the cross product property up here. So it's going to be 3.5 times 50 equals 1 times x. So 3.5 times 50 is 175. So x equals 175 miles. Because I don't need to divide by 1 right there. So let's see if it makes sense. If it's 1 inch is 50 miles, 3.5 inches is going to be 3 50s. So that's 150 plus half of a 50, which is 25. So that makes sense. Okay, number 3, you're going to use the cross product property. So in here there's two terms. y plus 3 has two terms, so I need to make sure I use parentheses. So I do 4 times the quantity y plus 3 equals 8y. Because you're multiplying here and you multiply here. Now I need to do the distributive property and do 4y plus 12 equals 8y's. And then subtract 4y, 12 equals 4y, y equals 3 is my answer. So make sure that you're using parentheses. Letter B. I'm going to use parentheses again. So this time, I have multiplying a binomial, x minus 3 times x plus 2, put both of those in parentheses, equals 6. 3 times 2 is 6. Okay, so I'm going to FOIL this. So I'm going to distribute. X times x is x squared, plus 2x minus 3x minus 6 equals 6. So I'm getting into a quadratic. There's degree 2 right here. This is degree 2. So I'm going to solve this quadratic. You can solve it by doing the quadratic formula, or you can try to solve it by factoring. I'm going to try to solve it by factoring. So it's going to be minus x, and I want to get one side equal to 0. So it's going to be minus 12 equals 0. Now I'm going to factor this out into two binomials. So I do factors of negative 12 that add up to negative 1. So factors of negative 12 that add up to negative 1 are negative 4 and positive 3. So using the zero product property, I'm going to set each of these factors equal to 0. So x plus 3 equals 0 and x minus 4 equals 0. So this means that x equals negative 3 or x equals 4. So when you get a quadratic, you can do the quadratic formula, or you can check to see if you can solve it by factoring. You're going to get a quadratic if you have to multiply x times x. Well, let's go over here. So I'm going to use this cross product property. So it's going to be 25y's equals 150. Divide both sides by 25. So how many quarters and $1.50? It's 6. Y is 6. Much easier than this one because we got an x squared. Okay, number 4. A scale model of a boat is 9 inches long. The boat's actual length is 60 feet. Find the ratio of the length of the scale model. So we have to write this first to the length of the boat. So the first thing that you write is the length of the scale model, which is 9 inches. The length of the boat is 60 feet. Again, we need to make sure that these two are the same units, and they're not. So the easiest thing you can do is convert. I don't want to divide 9 by 12. I'm going to multiply 60 by 12. So 60 times 12 is 720, because 6 times 12 is 72. So it's 9 to 720. Now I need to see if it reduces. It does, because 7 plus 2 is divisible by 9. So I know I can divide 720 by 9. So 72 divided by 9 is 8. So this has to be, divide this by 9 has to be 80. It's reduced. Okay, number 5. A map uses a scale of 1 centimeter is 20 miles. So I'm already setting up a ratio. A proportion is 2 equal ratios. So how wide is the county on the map? So the map is going in terms of centimeters. So we want to figure out how many centimeters. So that's going to go on the top with our other centimeters right here. And then 90 miles is going to go on the bottom, because these two match up. 9 miles on the bottom, centimeters on the top. So now I use the cross product property, and I multiply 1 times 90, so I get 90 equals 20 times x. So I divide both sides by 20. The zeros cancel out. 2 goes into 9 4.5 times. So x equals 4.5. Make sure you put your units. So our units, we're talking about centimeters because we're looking at the map. So it's 4.5 centimeters.